His name is Arpit Joshipura, and he is the GM and Senior Vice President for the Linux Foundation overall, and he oversees all of the projects and all of the different groups. He has graciously provided us with a short video, so I'm going to hand it over to the technical team. If you guys can just start the video, that'd be great.
Hello. I'm excited to be here at this conference. Very exciting topics. And what I'm planning to cover today is the role of edge and 5G networks, specifically as Metaverse unfolds. Before I get to that, I just wanted to make sure that people understand the role of Linux Foundation, where I work, and I head up open source networking and edge. Linux Foundation is here to create the largest shared technology, and we enable open collaboration. So for those of you who don't know us, we are well beyond Linux. We host a whole bunch of projects in technology areas of security, networking, edge, etc., as well as markets. And it is the single largest open source nonprofit foundation that enables global collaboration. So with that background, I want to jump straight into the infrastructure portion of Metaverse. The infrastructure is critical, specifically as it is enabled by 5G and from an end-to-end perspective. So if you look at this architecture, and I'm jumping right in, assuming you are familiar with how networks are built. From the left, you have access, whether it's RAN on 5G or through fiber. Come into an edge, and I'll talk about edge in just a minute, into a cloud, up the workload chain, all the way into the applications. And I'm not showing any Metaverse applications like next generation applications here, but assuming this is kind of that next generation 5G infrastructure, edge plays a very pivotal role in the evolution of what is now known as Metaverse. But before we get into what edge is, I think definition is required. We have two types of edges, and by the way, projects like State of the Edge define these in a Wikipedia style definition. So please kind of go in, look at LF Edge and its project and understand the definition, because we don't want definitions like cloud edge and thin edge and thick edge to be prevalent. It's mostly a user edge and a service provider edge. User edge is under the user's control, service provider edge is under the shared service. And under user edge, there are three deployment models: a constrained device edge, a smart edge under an IoT gateway, and an on-prem edge. And then on the other side of the last mile, we have access edge, where under the radio base station or smart central office. Again, keep in mind, these are the guts of the infrastructure systems. And on top are logos and projects that enable edge compute. And these are all open source projects. And keep in mind, it's critical that 5G and edge be built on open source, because those are the pillars of Metaverse. The other aspect that you need to appreciate is these projects come together in what we define as kind of markets, whether it's enterprise, whether it's service providers, cloud or telecom, or end users, including government. And these markets have specific verticals inside, and they all have different needs, all the way from application to infrastructure. But there are common building blocks and pillars that we build in open source that can be utilized across industrial, energy, commerce, retail, home, et cetera, et cetera. So keep in mind that Metaverse is not a single dimensional problem. It's not even a two-dimensional problem. It's a three-dimensional problem, right? It is kind of broken down into, from our perspective, three big buckets: the infrastructure bucket, the interactive bucket, and the application or ecosystem bucket. And a lot of it is physical, a lot of it is virtual. The good news is we as technologists have already started venturing into portions of the lower layers of the stack, and specifically infrastructure. And that's where edge compute comes in, that's where 5G comes in. Keep in mind, any edge application today, as we define it, requires less than 20 milliseconds of latency for it to be called an edge application. You can't have an application on a VR or smart glass with a connected edge, maybe like a IoT sensor dumping data once a month. That's not an edge application that we are talking about here in Metaverse, right? So you need to understand that it's critical that we all abide by some level of definition on how these architectures are going to evolve. Once they unfold, as I talked about, the various industrial enterprise verticals will have use cases, whether it's workforces, whether it's maintenance, whether it's specialty use cases. We don't know. Okay, if anybody in the entire conference claims they know, that's just marketing. So we don't know. But what we do know is there is a need for the infrastructure layer to be ready for future applications that are latency sensitive, time sensitive, bandwidth sensitive, and reliability sensitive. And whether it's industrial, enterprise, or consumer, it is going to happen. And we are already starting to see that unfold. And once you see that, over the past 30 years, being in networking and in this domain, I've always gotten requirements in these three buckets: latency, processing at the edge, and reliability. They have not changed. The numbers have changed. And so what has happened is now we're talking about 10 milliseconds. We're talking about processing at a very high level, including AI and algorithms that are running very close to a resource-constrained edge. Not 256 meg type loads that are running on a microcontroller, but more than that. So you can see that the requirements at the buckets don't change, the numbers change. And how networks are architected change. And how industries optimize change. And those requirements are what our community is all working on together. Not only are we looking at what can be done with the existing 5G networks, we're anticipating another big boost and help over the next 10 years through 6G. And the 6G itself, not just the data rate, but the scale and a whole new breed of applications are coming in over the next 10 years. So I just want to emphasize that, when you plan any application, don't plan it with the current mode of operation. Plan it with an assumption that there is future 6G coming down the pipe. So let me go a little bit deeper into showing you some of the progress that has been made in edge compute. We have an umbrella or sub-foundation called LF Edge under LF that focuses on end-to-end blueprints for edge computing use cases. There's about 20, 30 blueprints. Not all the blueprints are relevant for Metaverse. But you can see that some of these have started showing extremely low latency, high sensitivity requirements. Predictive maintenance being one of them on the industrial side, gaming, as well as a specific AR, VR application that's very popular, right, for integrated classroom learnings and retail enterprises. And these things are, again, running on existing open source projects. These are just some examples. It could be more, it could be less. Essentially giving the infrastructure, if you remember my first diagram, infrastructure, and then applications on the top, and then the physical virtual world meets in the middle. This is all at the infrastructure level. And we need to make sure that that one is rock solid to go before we dream all these applications that make us giddy all over the internet. So with that said, I want all of you to join me at the next big event, which happens in Seattle in North America, November 15th and 16th. This used to be called ONS, or Open Networking Summit. It's a 10-year-old conference, originated in Stanford, but now it's got a big edge component and IoT component to it. Please join us and help us figure out where the experts are thinking, the developers, the executives are thinking where Metaverse is heading, where 5G is heading, where IoT is heading. And with that, and don't forget, as with all conferences, there's a discount of 20%. If you use this code, you can take a picture of this. Thank you very much, and hope to see you in a future meeting. Thanks again.
Thanks very